Alrighty, welcome back to the weight room. Thanks for joining us today. We have special guest Scott Porter coming on to talk about his experience in the world of health and fitness. We're going to be talking about kind of how his background in orthopedic surgery has tied into his health and fitness. We're going to be talking about cycling, and we're also going to be talking about his product, RadHide. So enjoy the episode, but before we get started on that, make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening. Leave us a rating and review, share with a friend, and enjoy the content. Here we go.
My day job, I'm an orthopedic surgeon in Davis, California. I'm the chief of surgery at our hospital, and that keeps me very busy. But I definitely have an entrepreneurial kind of bug. And so I've started a lot of businesses in my life, starting when I was a little kid, kind of progressed throughout the years, developed a medical equipment company, sold that, started a app, which is a time tracking app for hospitals, which is actually doing quite well. It's called ResQ Medical. And it's kind of spreading throughout the nation. It's a number of the UCs, UC Davis, UCSF, UCLA, Kaiser. So it's done really well. And then for me, I'm much more of a starter than I am of kind of a business runner. And so once something's kind of up and running, it loses a little bit of the appeal for me. And so I've moved on to the next venture, which was RadHide, and coming up with this sweatband for the Peloton. And so, basically the way that worked is during the pandemic, they, everything shut down, and I was riding my Peloton a lot at home. I couldn't do elective surgeries. And sure enough, I noticed that the screws on the bike started rusting. And it was kind of like one of those things where you're just cranking into this workout, and every little drop of sweat that would hit the frame, it just kind of was eating me apart, tearing me apart. I just had to do something about it. And so that's how I created the RadHide. And I wanted something that was just extremely simple, something that was durable, and something that solved the problem. And I think it kind of hits all of those marks. So yeah, my wife, she has a background in textiles and sewing. And so, it all started in our garage, and we bought a surging device and just started making them in the garage, and things kind of took off from there.
When it comes to your medical background, was that something that as growing up, is that something that you were interested in, or, how did you land on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always liked to fix things. I've always liked the idea of making things better, and really enjoy working with people and taking care of people throughout my life. My dad was an eye surgeon. And so I thought, initially I was going to be an eye surgeon. And then and when I got into medical school, you start rotating through the different specialties. And I went to a few ophthalmology conferences, and I just couldn't stay awake. It just kind of bored me to death. And then started hanging out with some of the orthopedic surgeons in the hospital and learning what they did. And it just was a great fit. It's you work with power tools and you make people better. I mean, my whole day, I spend it, fixing people. People come in, they're in wheelchairs or using front wheel walkers, and then do a hip replacement on them or a knee replacement, and then they're walking independently. So it's just very, very rewarding.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And when from the perspective of like tying it into kind of like the fitness side of things, a lot of people do need some kind of knee replacement or hip replacement. Is that something though that you're seeing is moving in any type of direction? Is it getting more prevalent? Is it getting less prevalent?
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question. Absolutely. With the baby boomer generation, we're seeing almost like a logarithmic, uptick in terms of the number of joint replacements. So I'm very busy doing those. Prior to the pandemic, I was doing probably 5 to 6 total joints in a day. It slowed down a bit with the pandemic, but we're getting back to that point right about now. We're getting back up to those numbers. And, globally, it's just going to be probably more joints than orthopedic surgeons can handle. So it's going to be a daunting task taking care of everybody.
Do you think that has to do with the number of surgeons, or do you think that has something to do with the just the number is going up that we have to deal with?
Yeah, it has to mostly with the number that we have to deal with. It's really the baby boomer generation. We have this kind of aging population, and their joints are just wearing out, and it's pretty substantial.
Do you think that there's certain habits done or not done that have led to this kind of I don't want to use the word
Yeah,
epidemic, but epidemic
yeah,
of joint issues?
yeah. That's a great question. We know that in terms of arthritis, there are things that can contribute to that. So being overweight is a huge issue. It just puts more stress and force across the joints. So I think that's a great segue into kind of your passion, fitness, and being healthy, keeping your weight in check. And then there's definitely a genetic component to it as well. We see a lot of families where I'm seeing the patient and their parents both had, knee replacements or hip replacements. And then there is a link to high impact exercise too. So like running, but I don't think that's for everybody. I think you have to have some sort of predisposition where running is harmful. And so I'm actually a runner myself. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'4", I weigh about 235 pounds, but I still run and I don't have any pain when I'm running. So I'll do it for as long as I can. But if somebody has, arthritis and their knees are wearing out, that's not a good time to pick up running or to do high impact exercise. So a lot of our counseling, centers around avoiding high impact exercise, doing walking, swimming, cycling, the Peloton, those sorts of things are great.
Do you think that as the average lifespan increases, not just over the last, 50 years or whatever, but, over the last 100 years, 500 years, whatever it is, do you think that we're speeding up or we're increasing maybe our lifespan faster than our body can kind of evolve to handle the extra time that we are alive?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. It's a great question. There's been lots of studies on tissues in the human body, and how they hold up over the years. And I think what I've learned is that when people are growing, their growth plates are open, they regenerate extremely well. I mean, kids, we call them starfish in the orthopedic world because they get an injury and they just heal so well. But as we get older, even into our 20s or 30s, our tissues just start breaking down and they're just not the same. So yeah, they're very susceptible to injury. That leads to arthritis and rotator cuff tears and all kinds of stuff.
It's kind of crazy to think about how the human body, it's kind of this machine to where for the most part, like everything runs so smoothly, but then one thing kind of gets out of whack, even the smallest amount of smallest thing, and it's can cause catastrophic damage. It's amazing to me that anybody truly is functional.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's one of the draws to medicine. It's just because no matter all of the challenges, the human body is a very amazing thing and how it functions and maintains itself through homeostasis. And I remember that being a pretty early draw, just trying to get my mind around that and understand that.
So moving kind of to the fitness side of things, what was it for you that got you into that? Was it sports? Was it just a love for fitness? What was it?
Yeah, I've been involved in fitness my entire life. I played football in high school, and so it's obvious need to hit the weight room and lift weights and stay healthy. And so once you understand fitness and you understand the importance for not only your body or your mind, it's something that you need to do your whole life. There have been a few times in my life when I've slipped away from it, like during my residency, and I was working 80 plus hours a week, and boy, you pay the price. You put on weight, you just don't feel good, and all those things. So yeah, fitness is just an incredibly important part of my life.
When it comes to that side of health and things like, people like doctors and nurses and first responders and things like that who work, longer shifts than normal, who may have different sleeping schedules, even just on different, from week to week. Is there any movement that you can see, or is there any emphasis on like trying to figure out how we can make, healthier strides toward or for these, these different workers who have these weird schedules and sleeping patterns and, maybe struggle with their diet and exercise because of that?
Yeah, that's I love that you're bringing that up. I think there's a lot of growth that needs to happen, in that arena. But I will say, even some of these fitness trackers where people are monitoring their steps per day, a lot of my nurses, they'll break out over lunch and, try to get their steps in and walk around the hospital or, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I think there needs to be more readable fitness centers, on these campuses. Some campuses do have gyms and such, but they're hard to come by. And, in a busy lifestyle, it's hard to break away from where you're working. So I think there is room for growth there for sure.
So after your football, high school football career and kind of lifting weights in that setting, Did you continue to lift weights? And if so, did you continue kind of on that same kind of path as the same lifting style, or did you move to different? Because I know like some schools might do more like of a traditional strength conditioning. Some might do more of like a bodybuilding style program. Did you kind of shift in what you were doing after your football career was over?
Yeah, definitely. Through college, I just kind of carried on the same weightlifting routine because that was what was known to me. In high school, it was all about just building strength for me. I don't like many high schools, football teams, they'll have like a weight shirt, 200-pound bench shirt, and it's like an award that you get once you hit that level. And so we had those. And so it was, being very goal oriented. I remember in high school kind of striving to hit those weights and get up to 275 and 300 and being very driven, in that sense. And then, transitioning to college, I didn't have quite as much time for that. I was trying to get into medical school, working really hard. But I always made it a point to get to the gym and try to work all of the key like muscle groups. And I still do that today. I mean, even as a busy surgeon and entrepreneur, every single day I take time for fitness. So, maybe I'll take a day off, once every couple of weeks, but I'm either trying to get on the Peloton for 30 minutes or go for a 30-minute run. And then I'm lifting weights 3 days a week and I'm trying to hit all those key muscle groups. And then probably a little bit more core workout too these days too.
And from perspective of somebody who has, a pretty good background on the human body, how do you implement that knowledge into your own workout routine?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, especially as an orthopedic surgeon, I see a lot of patients with injuries. And I do think as we get older, and we talked about kind of the quality of our tissues in our bodies as we get older, as their tissue quality declines, you probably can't push the strength part as much. I've definitely transitioned to more repetitions over higher weight and lower repetitions. And I think that's really important. I have a lot of patients that, tear their pec muscle or, tear their biceps tendons. And I think at a certain point in life, if you're feeling pain or discomfort, you really need to transition your approach and think about, your reps versus the weight. I think it's like everything else in life. If you're going to build a house, you need a good foundation. And so that starts with really good form, making sure that you're not straining or injuring other parts of your body while you're, focusing on a muscle group, and just, listening to your body too, right? And making sure that it's feeling good and it's getting a good workout, but it's not hurting you.
So at what point did you start picking up cycling? Was that something that you wanted to do as like a have to thing or a want to thing?
Yeah, I did. So I've done a little bit of road biking, but I've always been probably once I graduated from college, you need some way to stay fit. Indoor cycling is probably the best bang for your buck. I mean, it feels like a run, but you don't have that high impact exercise, where it's kind of banging on your joints and your body. I mean, I think my first spin class, I just fell in love with it. It was awesome. You have those endorphins, you sweat like crazy, and you walk away from it feeling like you've really accomplished something. And on my Peloton in 30 minutes, I'll burn 500, 600 calories. And it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, kind of a big bang for your buck. And I feel too, like it's such a cool kind of community too, even though you're just, if you're at your house, but like just on social media or on like a Facebook page or something like that, or even through Peloton itself.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think it's brilliant marketing, brilliant business model. I mean, gosh, everything from the name, Peloton, a group of people riding together, right? And you're doing it virtually online. And it's just brilliant. I'm so impressed with the whole company and then the community that's come out of that. As an orthopedic surgeon, I think spin is probably the best aerobic exercise you can do. And so my hope is that, Peloton's here to stay, and it's just going to grow and, be something that's around for a long time.
Invest in something, even if it's not Peloton, if it's some kind of like fitness community app, there's tons of stuff out there, or get a personal trainer or join some type of like online group or even a Facebook page. Like it doesn't have to be in person to still deliver, a community feel. So when it comes to the cycling, was that something that you've consistently, stuck with over time?
So I've always kind of done it. The Peloton has really made it something that could be consistent. I was going to the gym prior to the pandemic, and that was hard to do. The best gym on my side of town was at the university. And so it's just like a night near to park. And there's some days where I would pull into the parking lot and circle for 15 minutes, and then I'd go, oh man, I gotta go. so yeah, it hasn't been entirely consistent until probably the last 4 years, and then definitely very consistent once I bought the Peloton.
When I first got it, I was really excited to get it, and then I kind of like fell off of it for a little bit. I was slacking a little bit. I'll have to admit.
Yeah.
But I think a big part of any kind of fitness or really anything in life is setting some kind of goal. And, I set a goal to do a specific, mile challenge for myself. And, ever since then, it's kind of been like getting after it. And it's really cool to see the results after you do it for a while. My brother actually got one around the same time I did. And he started to, when I fell off, he was, continuing to do it. And I was like, oh man, I got to get back on. And, he was actually trying to lose some weight, and, he really did. It really helped him lose some weight, as well as a little bit of weightlifting and stuff like that. But I was like, you know what? He's seeing these results, and I don't want to necessarily lose weight, but I want to increase my endurance. I want to do, other goals. And it really has. It's been a really cool journey. Just setting that goal, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So kind of moving back though into your kind of fitness and everything like that. What's the role of nutrition within your health?
There's pretty good data in the medical world to suggest that being vegan or plant-based only is incredibly good for you. We have lots of patients who have had heart disease, and you hear about these patients and they're getting stents, and they go to a plant-based diet, and it just basically arrests that process. I'm not always successful about it because I love to barbecue, and and I enjoy meat from time to time, but I strive for a plant-based diet as much as possible.
I wouldn't call it vegan. I would call it maybe like soft vegan. I tried like a soft vegan like 2 years ago for 3 months ish. It was very hard. I won't say it was easy, but it was something that wasn't necessarily as challenging as I thought it would be, from the perspective of like finding still good foods to eat. Now there's definitely a challenge in like the foods that you typically wouldn't think would have animal products in them that do is insane. So that's kind of one struggle to get around, but it wasn't a terrible experience.
But it gives you an awareness, just like you're saying, right, of kind of what's out there, because you start looking at the ingredients on things and, what can I actually eat?
Right.
It becomes challenging.
Yeah. When it comes to like vegan, vegetarian, things like that, I think it's so crazy how different people's bodies can respond to different diets.
Yeah. And it's how much is that is, genetics, or, how you're built versus what you're accustomed to, right? And your system probably has to adapt to that and how it uses energy, in your body and all of that. It's an interesting point.
So is it something that once you kind of made the decision to eat more of a plant-based diet, is it something that you saw, was there any like mental benefits? What were like the physical differences that you were seeing, like stuff like that?
One thing I used to do is eat a lot of like Greek yogurt, in the morning. I discovered I was allergic to it. I mean, it was really just kind of irritating my body and my sinuses and everything like that. So actually about a month ago, I stopped doing that and switched to kind of like a spinach smoothie in the morning, with a little bit of fruit in it. And it's been incredible. I mean, feel a lot better, don't have as much congestion. And I think it's just a good way to start the day.
But go into a little bit on like, so the point of it is to stop the bike basically from breaking down, the sweat. So go into a little bit more on that though.
Yeah, you got it. So, the thing about riding a Peloton, if you sweat, I mean, it just coats that bike. And if you don't clean it, it's going to be pretty nasty after a while. I was in at a hotel fairly recently where they had some Pelotons, and when it was your turn to walk up to the bike and use it, it was just covered in sweat and pretty like not excited to get on that bike, so that's one part of it, is that it just, it's a simple towel, basically. Almost think of it like a yoga mat for your bike, or a yoga towel for your bike. And so it just ties on quickly. I wanted something that was super simple, that actually covers the bike. It doesn't just strap to the frame or something like that, where the material is going to be soaking the frame in sweat. And so the idea was to cover the frame and the crank mechanism and all of that. And then you can actually use a towel too that we sell, and you put it on your handlebars. And if you do that, it pretty much covers the entire bike. and you won't, I mean, you might get like a drop or two of sweat on your bike during a workout, but you're not going to get much more. And so it just makes the cleanup easy. You know, you don't have to worry about your bike getting all nasty and gross. And then it also just prevents, you know, rusting and corrosion to the bike, which is going to happen over time.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like cleaning and everything like that, is there, should people clean it every day? Should they clean it every week, every month, or not deal with it at all?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. So, um, you know, we run the gamut. When we first started making these, we thought it was really important to product test them. And so we would wash them after every use. And we did, you know, hundreds of cycles, and just to make sure that the product would hold up in the wash. But if you, I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't washed the one that I have on my bike for probably 2 weeks, and it's totally fine. I mean, the amazing thing about this material is it just dries out so quickly, that it doesn't, it doesn't smell. It doesn't, it doesn't actually get that dirty, even though you're sweating on it. It's just salt and water. So I think it's important to wash it probably once every week or 2 weeks, if you're using it, just to keep it sanitary.
I always think like if this thing falls over, this is going to hurt, So I think like the biggest aspect for me is like, I don't want this thing to like come apart when I'm riding it and like it tip over or something. And like, I think that's like the biggest aspect for me. Not that like Peloton is made poorly, but like if it were to decay or whatever you want to call it, if it were to rust, like that's a very big possibility. And I think that's probably honestly the biggest thing for me is just like the safety aspect of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we've been at this for a little over a year now, and we get lots of stories from customers, and I've had countless customers tell me that they've had to have their frames replaced because of the rust damage. And so once somebody has experienced that, the product becomes a no-brainer. I think they're all in. And so I think our room for growth is just, helping customers out there who have a Peloton and they don't really understand what's going to happen to that bike if they don't protect it over time.
Yeah. I think it's good to get that out there because like I said before, I didn't realize, like I never considered that I needed to protect it from my sweat, they just never crossed my mind. But as far as like the future though, of the product goes and of, what maybe its evolution looks like, is there any thought into like what's coming next?
Yeah. So we, like everything else, people love their Yeti cups and they like their color of their Yeti cup and all of that stuff. So we're having different colors roll out. We have a cool, it's a kind of a dark camo, color that's going to be coming out soon. And then, we do have plans to expand to other products. There's a mat you can put underneath the bike. We'll probably have more hand towels. We might even have a line of just beach towels out of the same material that we're going to bring out, because it's such an amazing, the drop lock fabric that we have is such an amazing fabric. It's so lightweight and absorbs water so nicely that I think that's kind of the future of towels actually, is to have a material like that. Yeah. And then our plan really is just to expand, within the Peloton customer base, and then hopefully get out to hotels. So that when people are using the Pelotons at hotels, they're protected and they're clean. And I think that'll make that experience better. Yeah. And then we actually make a ride hide for pretty much every model's indoor cycle out there, including Spin, Custom Indoor Cycle, Schwinn, Kaiser, kind of running the gamut. And so I think there's a lot of room for growth, just getting the ride hide into gyms as well, as gyms reopen and customers are getting out there, in these group classes. I listen to a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts. There's some good ones out there. And in one of them, I heard a podcast on Steve Jobs, and his idea of a successful product is one that you've built for yourself. It should be, if you build a product for yourself, then it's going to be an incredible product because you've made it to satisfy all of your needs. And I think that's kind of where we started with this product. And so I truly believe that we're going to be very successful, and it's going to continue to grow and expand. And my hope is in 5-10 years, this is just a normal thing on, pretty much every spin bike.
If you want to tell people where they can get a hold of you and get a hold of the product, that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is www.ridehide.com, RIDEHIDE.com. And my email is info@ridehide.com. Always happy to hear from people.
Appreciate you sharing some time here on the weight room, and it was good talking to you.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate being on your show.